In today's video, a globe-trotting toy soldier collector from Ottawa is going to share his fascinating collection and some anecdotes related to his hobby. My name is Mark Silverthorn, and I'm the social media chairman of the Ontario Model Soldiers Society. And today we have a special guest, Scott from Ottawa. Scott is a serious toy soldier enthusiast. He's also a YouTuber. He's got his own toy soldier YouTube channel called Scott's Soldiers.
Correct.
He is a member of the Ottawa chapter of the Ontario Model Soldiers Society. Our special guest has traveled extensively across the globe, and during these travels, he has often purchased model soldiers. What our special guest today may forget to mention is that in the past 18 months, I beat him at purchasing some French old guard Napoleonic figures at a Paris toy soldier shop named Les Drapeaux de France. So welcome, Scott.
Hi, Mark. Thank you very much.
At the beginning of the video, we showed an opening clip of a diorama of some submarines. You could just tell us a little bit about that diorama.
Yeah, it's King and Country. I believe they came out with it in the first 5 or 6 years in 2000. And I was traveling, shouldn't say traveling, I was driving through Ottawa, and there used to be a store called the Toy Soldier Market in the Byward Market, which is a bit of a tourist area in Ottawa. And it was run by an OMSS member, still is a member, Michael Canave. And he had a toy soldier store, which was kind of unique, I mean, in Canada and certainly in Ottawa. And he would have the storefront with all his King and Country figures. And I didn't know it existed. It was just happenstance. I was driving by and I saw it and hit the brakes, pulled over right away and ran up to the storefront. And like a little child, I, sort of pressed my face up against the window and I was looking at this. And I had lived in Ottawa for about 20 years and never even noticed this place. Now, I'd already been collecting toy soldiers, but here was my own candy store in my backyard. And at the time, he had the King and Country Kriegsmarine in the window. And I just couldn't believe it. And this was something that Michael would do often when he had new products from King and Country. He would just put all of them, in the windows and in his display cabinets. But this was in the window and I had to have it. But I couldn't afford it at the time. And so I was buying it piecemeal and putting it in the trunk of my car. And then when I get home, I'd sort of sneak it into the house and put it in a closet or hide it in the garage as I was buying the Kriegsmarine set. And it's not that I'm interested in necessarily German military figures. It was so unique. I had never seen anything like that anywhere. I mean, you could buy individually Kriegsmarine figures if you saw them. Del Prado has made them in the past, and Thomas Gunn has done it as well. But this was something that I had to have. And so piece by piece, I was buying it from Michael's store. And then eventually, probably 10 years later, well, in the last couple of years, I displayed it. But I displayed it along the lines of how King and Country had done it on their website and in their brochures. I bought the jetties. I brought a cross bridge. And then I added a few other figures. And so this was a way to get it out of the box and somewhere where I could admire it and see it. And then ultimately, that was the first video I did when I decided to step out into YouTube and share what I had with other people. Because again, when I've gone to shows and elsewhere, you don't see the Kriegsmarine sets. And I don't know, maybe just that's a personal issue with other collectors. You certainly can't get them anymore from King and Country. They're sold out. But I just thought it was interesting. And subsequently, I found out that the U-boats themselves were a limited edition. And I didn't know that at the time. But again, that made it kind of unique because, as you know, King and Country and Britton's and some of the other makers, not the small cottage ones, they just crank this stuff out by the thousands, and that's for their profit. They have to make enough figures to make it worthwhile. And so the fact that King and Country every now and then does a limited edition on something, I just thought in this case it was a great idea, and it really piqued my interest, and I'm glad I bought them.
You could just, I'd like you to share with us some of your experiences where you've traveled internationally and you've gone to a brick and mortar toy soldier retailer. And if you could just share that experience with us. And why don't you start out in Asia?
In 1992, I was in Hong Kong, and I was actually on holidays, and I was staying in a hotel. And I thought in Hong Kong I'd treat myself, and was staying in a really swanky hotel, and it was attached to something called the Pacific Mall, which was or still is a high-end mall in downtown Hong Kong. And I was transiting through the mall from the metro system that they have there back to my hotel. And as I was walking through, not paying attention because I'm not into Louis Vuitton or Fendi or Chanel or any of that stuff. And a lot of what you notice in Hong Kong is that it's in Chinese script. And then sometimes they'll have something in smaller English script. King and Country. It couldn't be any bigger. And it caught my eye, and it was like, what is that? In this high-end mall, what is King and Country? And it was literally a total glass front storefront. And you couldn't see until you got maybe about 15 feet there. It was toy soldiers. And it struck me as, in Hong Kong, toy soldiers in an upscale mall, what's going on here? And it literally was like a black hole. You get sucked into it. And I got up to the storefront, and it was just nothing but toy soldiers in the windows. And you got to give Andy Nielsen a lot of credit here, because he picked a storefront that had a lot of glass, and he crammed it full of his products. And to someone like me and yourself and other people that are watching this video, it really is Aladdin's cave. You walk in there, and I just, my heart stopped. I was having trouble breathing. I was hyperventilating. I was in my 30s, and this was crazy. And if that wasn't a sign that I had found my hobby, I don't know what was. It'd be the equivalent if you walked in and there was nothing but gold bars sitting on the floor, and it was like, take as much as you can carry out. And I walked in that store, and I was going from display case to display case. I was breaking all the rules because I had my fingerprints on them, and I was breathing on them and fogging it up, and I was moving from display case to, because I didn't know what to do. I was like a dog in a forest. Which tree do I go to? So I picked up a few pieces, and I've shown you the pictures of those ones. But they also had at that time their mahogany warbirds. Man, were those beautiful, and the price was right. And I actually was looking at a catalog that I picked up there. They wanted $125 for those warbirds, and the shipping was free. I know anyone that has those warbirds knows what they're worth now. But my fear was it's going to get busted into 5 different pieces, either through the mail or in my luggage. So I had to pass on those. But I ended up buying the Grenadier Guards in the outfits that they're in. But there was so much to choose from. But I like the Grenadier Guards. I like the Maxim gun that I bought, and the Camel that I bought. And that became my theme for my initial purchases of King and Country. Now, of course, once I bought those, I never got back to Hong Kong. Now, the other places I've been to is Paris. And I actually did a video on my trip to Paris. And I had the opportunity to go back to two stores that I'd been to before. And one was Les Plats d'Étain, which is a small little store, really tiny. They sell almost exclusively Mignon, some tradition figures, not a lot, and some Lucot. I'm not really into French military figures, but I like the fact that the Mignon made what they called Canadian soldiers of World War One, and they're wearing a Stetson hat. I don't know who was wearing a Stetson hat in World War One in the trenches, but it was kind of a, pardon the expression, tip of the hat to Canada. And so I picked up those figures there. I'd also enjoyed going to that store because the woman that on both occasions that I've talked to there, it gets me a chance to practice my French and speak to her in French. And I think when you're in a country and English isn't their first language, I find that it really helps if you can say a few words, whether it's in German or Italian or Spanish or Cantonese, whatever it might be, that it really makes the whole experience go better. And so every time I've gone back to there, I've enjoyed talking to her in French. And I always find that, she's willing to sort of go the extra mile when I'm looking for something or to help me out. And at another store where that also helps is Les Drapeaux de France, which is in, I think, the first arrondissement, just on the other, about a block away from the Louvre Museum in the Palais Royal. And that is another great store. Again, it's owned by a husband and wife. It is, I don't want to say eclectic, but they have a lot of non-military toy figures. But if you're interested in older French military toy soldiers or European in that nature, that's a great place to go to. Again, a great proprietor. You can see they have fantastic Napoleonics, pre-Napoleon, Second Empire, post-war French military figures. But what caught my eye was these three figures. One is Lupin, who is a mainstay character in French literature. He's the gentleman thief, and Netflix is currently doing a series on him. And then this dog and cat figure, which, because the La Comédie Française, which is a theater which dates back to pre-Napoleonic, I guess it would be Louis the Bourbons when they ruled France. The Comédie Française was there and existed back then.